Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair at Earth's main communications center, watching the screens that normally buzzed with messages from across the galaxy. For the first time in 37 years, every single screen showed the same thing. Nothing. The silence started 3 hours ago. Jake remembered the exact moment because he was drinking his morning coffee when the last message came through. It was a simple trade report from the Zentari Republic about grain shipments. The alien voice was halfway through listing cargo weights when it just stopped. Not even static remained. "Sir, I've tried every frequency we know," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Nothing's coming through. Not even the automated signals that have been broadcasting for thousands of years." Jake stood up and walked to the main display. Hundreds of red lights showed communication failures across known space. Every alien civilization that humanity had contact with had gone completely silent. The Vorthak traders who talked constantly about fish prices. The scholarly ethereal collective who loved sharing poetry. The business-focused Corvani Empire with their daily economic reports. All of them had simply stopped talking. "Get me Dr. Lisa Carter," Jake ordered, "and contact Admiral Pete Sullivan at Luna Station. I need to know if this is happening everywhere or just here." Dr. Carter arrived within minutes, her lab coat still covered in coffee stains from when the emergency alert had interrupted her breakfast. She was Earth's top expert on alien languages and had spent decades learning how to talk with dozens of different species. "Commander, I've never seen anything like this," she said, pulling up translation programs on her tablet. "I'm running diagnostics on every communication system we have. Everything on our end is working perfectly. The problem isn't with our equipment." Jake nodded grimly. "What about our deep space monitoring stations? Are they picking up anything?" "That's the strange part," Lisa replied, scrolling through data. "Our sensors show that alien ships are still moving around out there. Their engines are running. Their life support systems are active. They're just not talking to anyone. It's like someone flipped a switch and told the entire galaxy to shut up at the same time." The communication panel beeped, and Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and worried, his gray hair messier than usual. "Jake, please tell me you're still getting signals from someone," the Admiral said. "Nothing, sir. Complete silence for 3 hours and 17 minutes. Sullivan rubbed his forehead. "Same thing here at Luna Station. And I just got reports from our colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Every human outpost in the solar system is reporting the same thing. Whatever happened, it affected the entire galaxy." "Any ideas what could cause this?" Jake asked. "None that makes sense," Sullivan admitted. "Our best guess is some kind of natural phenomenon. Maybe a solar flare from that big star in the Rigel system, or some kind of space storm we don't understand yet. But for it to affect every single civilization at the same time," he shook his head, "that would require something incredibly powerful." Dr. Carter looked up from her tablet. "Admiral, I've been thinking about the timing. The last few alien transmissions before the silence all mentioned something about energy readings. The Zentari were talking about unusual sensor data right before they cut off. The Vorthak mentioned detecting something strange in deep space yesterday." "What kind of energy readings?" Sullivan asked. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. The translations are incomplete, but they kept using words that roughly mean ancient power or old strength. It doesn't make much sense." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Ancient power? Like from the old stories? Every human who had spent time with aliens had heard the legends. Stories about a race called the Ancients, who supposedly ruled the galaxy millions of years ago before disappearing, without a trace. Most people, human and alien alike, treated these stories like fairy tales. But what if they weren't just stories? "I need both of you to keep working on this," Admiral Sullivan said. "Lisa, dig into those energy readings. Find out what the aliens detected. Jake, keep monitoring all frequencies. If anyone starts talking again, I want to know immediately." As the Admiral's image disappeared, Jake turned to look out the window at the busy streets below. People were going about their normal lives, completely unaware that humanity had suddenly become very alone in the universe. Cars drove by, children played in parks, and street vendors sold lunch to office workers. None of them knew that something had scared the entire galaxy into silence. "Commander," Amy called out, "I'm picking up a transmission from the Olympus research station near Jupiter." Jake hurried back to his chair. "Put it through." Dr. Alex Bennett's face appeared on screen. He was humanity's leading expert on electromagnetic weapons and had been working on some kind of secret project for the past 2 years. His laboratory on Olympus was supposed to be developing new mining equipment, but Jake had heard rumors about military applications. "Jake, I just got word about the communication blackout," Bennett said. "Is it true that every alien civilization has gone silent?" "Unfortunately, yes." "Why? Do you know something about this?" Bennett hesitated for a moment. "Maybe. I've been working on a new type of electromagnetic accelerator, a railgun system designed for deep space mining operations. We're scheduled to run our first full test tomorrow." "What does a mining railgun have to do with aliens going silent?" "Probably nothing," Bennett said quickly. "But the power requirements for this test are significant. We're talking about energy outputs that rival small stars. If there's some kind of connection to whatever the aliens detected..." Dr. Carter looked up sharply. "Dr. Bennett, did any aliens know about your project?" "No, it's been completely classified. Only a handful of humans know the full details." Jake frowned. "But if they detected energy readings from ancient sources, and now you're about to test a weapon with massive energy output?" "It's just a coincidence," Bennett insisted. "There's no way our railgun could be connected to some mythical ancient race." But as Jake looked at the wall of silent communication screens, he wasn't so sure. In all his years of working with alien civilizations, he had learned one important thing. When every single species in the galaxy suddenly became afraid at the same time, there was usually a very good reason for it. "Dr. Bennett," Jake said slowly, "I think you should delay your test until we figure out what's happening." "I can't do that, Commander. We've been preparing for this test for months. The orbital mechanics are perfect. The target asteroid is in position, and we have Admiral Sullivan's authorization." Jake looked at Dr. Carter, who was staring at her tablet with a worried expression. "What is it, Lisa?" "I just found something in the old translation files," she said quietly, the word the aliens kept using before the silence. "I thought it meant ancient power. But there's another translation. It can also mean the sleepers awaken." Outside the window, normal life continued in the city below. But Jake had a growing feeling that after tomorrow's railgun test, nothing in the galaxy would ever be normal again. 24 hours had passed since the galaxy went silent, and Dr. Alex Bennett stood in the control room of the Olympus Research Station, watching his life's work prepare for its first real test. The railgun stretched out before him through the observation windows, a massive metal tube nearly 2 kilometers long that looked more like a space station than a weapon. "All systems are green," announced Dr. Kate Phillips, the project's ballistics expert. She had been working with Bennett. For 2 years, calculating trajectory paths and energy requirements for what they officially called an electromagnetic mining tool. Everyone knew it could be much more than that. The target was an asteroid designated Mining Sample 7, roughly the size of Manhattan and composed mostly of iron and nickel. It sat alone in the Kuiper Belt, far from any shipping lanes or inhabited areas. Perfect for testing the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built. Admiral Sullivan wants a direct feed of everything, Bennett told his team. After what happened yesterday with the alien silence, everyone's nervous about this test. Lieutenant Carl Davis, the station's communications officer, nodded from his console. "Sir, we're getting status reports from monitoring stations throughout the solar system. Everyone's watching." Bennett walked over to the main control panel where the railgun's charging sequence was displayed. The weapon drew power from 3 fusion reactors working together, storing enough energy to light up a small city for a month. When released all at once, that power would accelerate a tungsten rod to 15% of light speed. Charging sequence initiated, Kate announced. Power building to target levels. Through the observation deck, Bennett could see the railgun's magnetic coils beginning to glow with a faint blue light. The entire station vibrated slightly as enormous amounts of electricity flowed through superconducting cables thicker than a person's waist. "Dr. Bennett," Carl called out, "I'm getting a priority message from Earth. Commander Morrison wants to know if we can delay the test." "Tell him negative," Bennett replied. "We've been planning this for months. The asteroid is in perfect position, and we have authorization from the highest levels. Besides, there's no proof that our test has anything to do with the alien situation." But even as he said it, Bennett felt a nagging worry in the back of his mind. The timing was suspicious. Just hours before humanity's most powerful weapon was scheduled to fire, every alien civilization had suddenly gone silent. It could be a coincidence, but Bennett had learned not to trust coincidences in his line of work. "Charging at 60%, Kate reported. "All magnetic containment fields stable." The railgun worked on a simple principle that had been known for centuries. Electric current flowing through parallel conductors created magnetic fields that either pushed the conductors apart or pulled them together. Scale that up to massive proportions. Add enough electricity to power a small nation, and you could accelerate a projectile to incredible speeds. What made this railgun special was its size and the sophisticated magnetic guidance system that kept the projectile perfectly centered as it traveled down the barrel. Without that guidance, the tungsten rod would slam into the sides of the barrel and destroy the entire weapon. 80% charge, Kate announced. Projectile loaded and secured. The projectile itself was a work of art, 3 meters long, and made of tungsten, the densest, stable metal known to humanity. At the speeds the railgun would achieve, the rod would hit with the kinetic energy of a nuclear bomb, but without any radiation or fallout. Pure, clean destruction delivered at nearly the speed of light. "Dr. Bennett," Carl said, his voice tense, "I'm getting some strange readings from our deep space sensors. There's unusual electromagnetic activity near the target area." Bennett frowned and walked over to the sensor station. "What kind of activity?" "I'm not sure. It looks like space itself is flickering somehow. The readings don't make sense." Kate looked up from her controls. "Could be interaction with the asteroid's magnetic field. Some of these space rocks have stronger magnetism than we expect." "Charging at 95%, the computer announced in a calm voice that seemed inappropriate for the moment. Bennett made his decision. "Continue the test. We've come too far to stop now." 100% charge achieved. All systems. Ready for firing. The entire station fell silent except for the humming of the fusion reactors and the quiet beeping of monitoring equipment. Bennett looked around at his team. Kate had her finger hovering over the firing control. Carl was watching his sensors with a worried expression. The other technicians were checking and rechecking their instruments. "On my mark," Bennett said, his voice carrying across the control room. 3, 2, 1, fire. Kate pressed the button. The railgun discharged with a sound like thunder being born. Every light in the station flickered as the massive capacitors released their stored energy in a fraction of a second. The tungsten rod accelerated down the barrel, pushed by magnetic fields so powerful they briefly warped the metal structure of the station itself. In less than a tenth of a second, the projectile left the barrel and began its journey toward the target asteroid. At 15% of light speed, it would take just over 6 hours to reach mining sample 7. "Clean launch," Kate reported, her voice shaking slightly from excitement. "Projectile is on course and maintaining velocity. No damage to the railgun. Systems." Bennett let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "Excellent work, everyone. Now we wait." But Carl was staring at his sensor displays with an expression of growing alarm. "Dr. Bennett, you need to see this. The electromagnetic disturbance I detected earlier. It's spreading." Bennett rushed to the sensor station. On the screen, he could see waves of energy rippling outward from the railgun's position. But that wasn't the strange part. The energy waves seemed to be creating some kind of resonance effect in the fabric of space itself. "That's impossible," Kate said, looking over Bennett's shoulder. "Our railgun shoots projectiles, not energy beams. There's no way it could create space-time distortions." "Unless," Bennett said slowly, "we don't understand our own technology as well as we thought." 6 hours and 12 minutes after firing, their sensors detected the impact. Mining sample 7 didn't just break apart or shatter. It disappeared in a flash of light so bright that their instruments nearly overloaded trying to measure it. The asteroid had been completely vaporized, turned into a cloud of superheated plasma that briefly outshone nearby stars. "My God," Kate whispered. "The energy release is off the charts. It's like we hit it with a small supernova." The explosion created an electromagnetic pulse that lit up the entire outer solar system. Radio telescopes on Earth detected the flash, and monitoring stations as far away as Pluto recorded the energy burst. But the most important effect happened in the minutes immediately following the test. "Dr. Bennett!" Carl shouted. "I'm getting incoming transmissions. Hundreds of them." Bennett spun around. "From where?" "Everywhere. Every alien civilization in the galaxy just started broadcasting at the same time. On the communication screens, alien faces appeared one after another. Some looked terrified, others confused, and a few seemed angry. They were all talking at once, their voices overlapping in a chaos of different languages and translation attempts. But through the noise, one word kept appearing in the translation software, spoken by dozens of different species in dozens of different languages. "Ancients." Bennett stared at the screens, watching alien diplomats and military commanders all saying the same thing. They were all talking about the Ancients, the mythical race that supposedly vanished millions of years ago. "Carl, get me a direct line to Earth," Bennett ordered. "I think we just made a very big mistake." As he waited for the connection, Bennett looked back at his railgun. It sat quietly in its cradle, looking like nothing more than an oversized piece of mining equipment. But somehow, firing that weapon had sent a signal across the galaxy. A signal that every alien civilization recognized. A signal that told them the Ancients had returned. Outside the station's windows, space looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago. But Bennett knew that everything had changed. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that no one could ignore. The question now was whether the galaxy would welcome them or declare war on them. From the panicked voices still flooding their communication systems, Bennett suspected it might be the latter. Commander Jake Morrison had never seen anything like it. Every communication screen in Earth's control center was flashing with incoming messages, and the noise was deafening. Hundreds of alien voices were trying to talk at the same time, their words mixing together in a chaos of panic and fear. "Turn down the volume," Jake shouted over the noise, "and get Dr. Carter in here immediately." Lieutenant Amy Foster was frantically switching between channels, trying to make sense of the flood of communications. "Sir, they're all saying the same thing. Every single species is talking about something called the Ancients." Jake grabbed his headset and tried to focus on one transmission at a time. The first clear voice belonged to a Vorthak trader he had spoken with many times before. But instead of the calm, business-like tone he was used to, the alien sounded absolutely terrified. "Human friends," the Vorthak was saying, "please tell us this is not true. Please tell us you are not the children of the Ancients returning to claim the galaxy." Dr. Lisa Carter burst through the control room doors, still pulling on her lab coat. "What's happening? I heard every communication array in the building activate at once." "The aliens are back online," Jake explained quickly. "All of them. And they're all talking about the Ancients. What do you know about this ancient civilization?" Lisa rushed to her translation console and began pulling up files. "Not much. They're mentioned in the folklore of almost every species we've met, but most aliens treat them like myths. According to the stories, the Ancients ruled the galaxy millions of years ago before disappearing without explanation." "Well, they're not treating them like myths anymore," Amy said, switching to another channel. "Listen to this ethereal collective. Broadcast." The speaker filled with the musical tones of an ethereal voice, but the usual calm poetry was replaced by something that sounded like panic. Through the translation software, the words became clear. "The forbidden energy signature has been detected. The sleepers have awakened. All ships must return to homeworlds immediately." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Lisa, what exactly happened when Dr. Bennett fired that railgun?" Before she could answer, the main screen lit up with an incoming priority. Transmission. The face that appeared belonged to Ambassador Zek Toll of the Vorthak Confederation, humanity's closest trading partner for the past 15 years. But the usually calm and friendly alien now looked like he had seen a ghost. "Commander Morrison," Zek Toll said, his voice shaking. "I must speak with your leaders immediately. What your species has done, it changes everything." "Ambassador, I'm not sure what you mean," Jake replied, though he was starting to have a terrible suspicion. "The energy signature from your weapon test," Zek Toll explained. "It matches the ancient readings we have detected in ruins across the galaxy. Ruins left by the Ancients before they vanished. Your railgun produces the same type of electromagnetic resonance that powered their civilization." Dr. Carter looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Jake, I'm getting similar reports from a dozen other species. They're all saying our railgun test triggered something. Ancient monitoring systems that have been dormant for millions of years are suddenly active again." "That's impossible," Jake protested. "It's just a magnetic accelerator. There's nothing mysterious about the technology." "Perhaps not to your species," Zek Toll said grimly. "But to the rest of the galaxy, what you have accomplished should be impossible." No civilization has successfully created weapons with that level of electromagnetic output since the ancients disappeared. We thought the knowledge was lost forever. Amy switched to another channel, and a new alien face appeared on a secondary screen. This one belonged to a member of the Corvani Empire, a militaristic species that humanity had always been careful around. War Admiral Crex Valdoon looked directly into the camera with cold, calculating eyes. "Humans," he said simply. "You will explain how you obtained ancient technology, or we will consider you a threat to galactic security." Jake felt sweat forming on his forehead. "Lisa, get me Admiral Sullivan immediately, and patch me through." "To Dr. Bennett on Olympus Station." Within minutes, both men appeared on split screens. Admiral Sullivan looked grim, while Dr. Bennett appeared confused and worried. "Admiral, are you seeing the same communications we are?" Jake asked. "Unfortunately, yes. Every alien government in known space is demanding explanations. Half of them think we're the descendants of some mythical ancient race, and the other half think we've stolen forbidden technology." Dr. Bennett leaned forward on his screen. "Gentlemen, I need to report something strange. After our Railgun test, our sensors detected unusual space-time distortions around the impact site. The energy release was far greater than our calculations predicted, and it created some kind of resonance effect in local space." "What kind of resonance effect?" Lisa asked. "We're not entirely sure. But for a brief moment, our instruments recorded what looked like a dimensional fold, as if the fabric of space itself was being manipulated." Ambassador Zek Toll, who had been listening to the conversation, made a sound that the translation software interpreted as a gasp of terror. Dimensional manipulation was the primary technology of the ancients. They used it for faster-than-light travel and for weapons that could destroy entire star systems. "That's just a coincidence," Bennett insisted. "We're using simple electromagnetic principles. There's nothing supernatural about it." "Perhaps," Zectol replied, "but the galaxy does not believe in coincidences of this magnitude. Already, several governments are mobilizing their fleets. The Corvani Empire has declared a state of military readiness. The Unity Collective Mind has recalled all of its exploration ships. Even the peaceful Ethereal Collective is considering breaking off diplomatic relations with humanity." Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a massive headache coming on. "So what exactly are they afraid of? If the ancients disappeared millions of years ago, why does everyone care so much?" Lisa pulled up a file on her screen. "According to the legends, the ancients didn't just disappear. They transcended physical existence, leaving behind only their technology and a warning that they would return if the galaxy was ever threatened. Most species have spent millions of years making sure never to develop technology that might wake them up. And now they think we did exactly that," Admiral Sullivan said grimly. Amy suddenly looked up from her console. "Sirs, I'm getting priority alerts from our deep space monitoring stations. Multiple fleets are moving toward the outer edge of human space. The largest one belongs to the Corvani Empire." Jake felt his heart sink. "How many ships?" "Over 200 vessels, including their primary battle fleet. They'll be at the edge of our solar system within 72 hours. Dr. Bennett appeared even more worried on his screen. "Admiral, what are our defensive capabilities against a fleet that size?" Sullivan's expression was grim. "We have 12 ships with military capability, and they're designed for patrol work, not fleet combat. Against 200 Corvani warships, we wouldn't last 5 minutes in a conventional fight." "Then we need to convince them that we're not a threat," Jake said. "Lisa, open a channel to every alien government simultaneously. We need to explain that this was just a mining accident." But even as he said it, Jake knew it wouldn't be that simple. Humanity had accidentally stumbled onto technology that terrified the entire galaxy. Technology that belonged to a race so powerful that other civilizations still feared them after millions of years. On the communication screens around them, alien faces continued to appear and disappear, all asking the same questions. Who were the humans, really? How had they obtained ancient technology? And most importantly, what did they plan to do with it? As Jake looked at the worried faces of his team, he realized that humanity's position in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer the friendly junior members of the galactic community. They had become something much more dangerous, a potential threat that the entire galaxy was preparing to deal with. The question now was whether they could convince everyone else that humans could be trusted with power that could reshape the galaxy itself. Outside the windows of the control center, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that its children had just painted a target on the entire human race. Dr. Lisa Carter sat across from Dr. Ron Baker in the emergency meeting room deep beneath Earth's government complex. As humanity's leading expert on alien archaeology, Ron had spent years studying the mysterious ruins found throughout the galaxy. Now his knowledge might be the key to understanding why the entire galactic community was terrified of humanity's railgun test. "Tell me everything you know about the ancients," Lisa said, pulling up translation files on her tablet. "And I mean everything, not just the official reports." Ron leaned back in his chair, looking older than his 50 years. "The ancients are the galaxy's greatest mystery. Every civilization has stories about them, but no one agrees on the details. Some say they were energy beings who could reshape matter with their thoughts. Others claim they were master engineers who built machines that could move stars. But they were real, right? Not just mythology?" "Oh, they were definitely real," Ron said, pulling up holographic images of ancient ruins. "I've personally examined 17 different archaeological sites across known space. The architecture is unlike anything built by current civilizations, and the technology we've found." He shook his head. "Lisa, some of these ruins contain devices that we still can't understand, even with our most advanced science." Lisa studied the images floating above the table, massive structures that seemed to twist through dimensions, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "What kind of technology?" "Energy manipulation systems that make our fusion reactors look like campfires, transportation devices that appear to bend space-time, and weapons." "Lisa, we found the remains of a weapon that could have cracked a planet in half." "Sounds like our railgun," Lisa muttered. "That's what worries me," Ron admitted. "According to the archaeological evidence, the ancients didn't just disappear. They chose to leave. Every site shows signs of deliberate shutdown, as if they packed up and moved to somewhere we can't follow." Lisa's tablet beeped with an incoming priority message. It was from Admiral Sullivan requesting their immediate presence in the main briefing room. When they arrived, they found President Helen Cross waiting with a grim expression, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet movements throughout the galaxy. "Dr. Carter, Dr. Baker," the president said without preamble, "I need to understand what we're dealing with. How dangerous is this ancient technology, and why is everyone so afraid of it?" Ron activated his presentation system, filling the room with images of ancient ruins. "Madam President, based on my research, the ancients possessed technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. They didn't just build faster-than-light drives, they created shortcuts through space-time itself." "And somehow our railgun mimics this technology?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Not mimics," Lisa corrected. reviewing the latest sensor data from Dr. Bennett's test. Our railgun accidentally recreated the same energy signature. When we fired that tungsten rod, we created a resonance effect that activated ancient monitoring systems throughout the galaxy. President Cross frowned. Monitoring systems? You mean they left behind some kind of early warning network? That's our best theory, Ron explained. The ancients appear to have seeded the galaxy with detection devices designed to alert them. If anyone developed similar technology, our railgun test lit up every one of these systems simultaneously. Admiral Sullivan pulled up a tactical display showing alien fleet movements, which explains why every government in known space suddenly became interested in our activities. The Corvani Empire has mobilized their entire battle fleet. They'll be at the edge of our solar system in less than 48 hours. What are their intentions? The president asked. According to their latest transmission, they consider humanity a potential ancient successor species. They're demanding that we surrender all railgun technology and submit to Corvani oversight. Lisa looked up from her tablet with alarm. I just received new intelligence from our embassy on Vorthak Prime. The Corvani aren't the only ones mobilizing. The Unity Collective Mind has begun moving ships toward human space, and even the peaceful Ethereal Collective is considering military action. Military action against what? President Cross demanded. We're not threatening anyone. With respect, Madam President, Ron said carefully, intention doesn't matter when you're dealing with technology this powerful. According to the legends, a single ancient ship could sterilize an entire star system. If the galaxy believes we have that capability, they'll attack us preemptively, Admiral Sullivan finished. Our intelligence suggests that several species are considering a joint military action to prevent humanity from becoming a galactic threat. President Cross stood up and began pacing. So let me understand this correctly. We accidentally built a weapon that produces the same energy signature as a mythical ancient race. This triggered some kind of galaxy-wide alarm system, and now everyone wants to either control us or destroy us. That's a fairly accurate summary, Lisa admitted. What about our diplomatic options? The president asked. Can we convince them that we're not a threat? Admiral Sullivan shook his head. I've been in contact with Ambassador Zektol and several other moderate leaders. They want to believe us, but they're under enormous pressure from their own governments. The fear of the ancients returning runs deep in galactic culture. Ron pulled up another set of images, these showing ancient technology in operation. Madam, President, you have to understand what the ancients represented to the galaxy. They were so far advanced that other civilizations couldn't even comprehend their capabilities. When they vanished, it was like children being left alone in a house full of dangerous tools they didn't understand. And now those children think the parents have come home, Lisa added. What happened to the ancients? President Cross asked. Where did they go? That's the trillion credit question, Ron replied. Some theories suggest they evolved beyond physical existence. Others believe they moved to a different dimension, or perhaps another galaxy entirely. But there are also darker theories, such as, Ron hesitated. Some archaeological evidence suggests the ancients didn't leave voluntarily. There are signs of a massive conflict, possibly a civil war that threatened to destroy the galaxy itself. The theory is that the surviving ancients chose to exile themselves rather than risk that level of destruction again. Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. Are you saying the ancients might still be out there somewhere? It's possible. And if they are, our railgun test might have just sent them a very clear signal that someone has rediscovered their technology. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity had not only attracted the attention of every current civilization in the galaxy, but they might have also awakened something far more powerful. "What are our options?" President Cross asked finally. "We could try to disable the railgun and convince everyone that it was just an accident," Admiral Sullivan suggested. "That won't work," Lisa said, reviewing her communication logs. "The energy signature is already recorded by dozens of civilizations. They know what we're capable of now." "We could try to form alliances with the more moderate species," Ron suggested. "The Vorthak Confederation and the Ethereal Collective might be willing to support us against the more aggressive governments." "Or," Admiral Sullivan said grimly, "we could prepare for war. If the galaxy is determined to see us as a threat, we might need to prove that we can defend ourselves." President Cross stopped pacing and looked at each of them in turn. "Dr. Baker, in your professional opinion, what would the ancients do if they really are still out there and they detected our railgun test?" Ron was quiet for a long moment. "Based on the archaeological evidence, if they thought we were a threat to galactic stability, they would act to neutralize that threat, quickly and decisively. And if they thought we were their successors, they might try to make contact, or they might test us to see if we're worthy of their legacy." President Cross sat back down heavily. "So we could be facing invasion fleets from current civilizations, the return of an ancient super race, or both." "There is one other possibility," Lisa said quietly. "What if the ancients left their technology behind intentionally? What if they were waiting for a species to rediscover it?" "You mean like a test?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Or an inheritance?" Ron added thoughtfully. "Many ancient sites contain what appear to be teaching devices, as if they were meant to educate whoever found them." President Cross rubbed her temples. "So, humanity might have just inherited the most powerful technology in galactic history, and everyone else is terrified that we'll use it to conquer them." "That's one way to look at it," Lisa admitted. "Then we need to prove them wrong," the president decided. "We need to show the galaxy that humanity can be trusted with this power. But first, we need to survive the next 48 hours. As if summoned by her words, Admiral Sullivan's communication device chimed with an urgent message. His face went pale as he read it. "Madam President, the Corvani fleet has accelerated their approach. They'll be here in 18 hours, not 48, and they're broadcasting a new ultimatum." "What do they want?" "Complete surrender of all human military assets and the immediate." Captain Steve Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UEV Defender, watching the tactical display that showed over 200 red dots approaching the outer edge of the solar system. Each dot represented a Corvani warship, and together they formed the largest military force ever assembled against humanity. "Distance to enemy fleet?" he asked his tactical officer. 12 hours at current approach speed, sir," Lieutenant Maria Santos replied. "They're maintaining battle formation and broadcasting the same ultimatum every hour." Steve had heard the ultimatum so many times he could recite it from memory. Complete surrender of all human military assets, immediate transfer of railgun technology to Corvani custody, submission to permanent Corvani oversight of human space. The alternative was described simply as demonstration of consequences. "Any word from Admiral Sullivan on reinforcements?" Steve asked. "Negative, sir. The Defender and 11 other ships are all we have. The Admiral is trying to convince other species to intervene, but so far no one wants to get involved." Steve nodded grimly. 12 ships against over 200. In any conventional battle, the outcome would be decided in minutes. But Admiral Sullivan had given him one advantage that the Corvani didn't know about. 3 of the human ships had been secretly fitted with smaller versions of Dr. Bennett's railgun technology. "Captain," came a voice from the communication station, Incoming transmission from War Admiral Krex Valdun. Put him on screen. The main display filled with the image of a Corvani military commander. Krex Valdun was typical of his species, tall, reptilian, with scales that shifted color to indicate mood. Right now, those scales showed the deep red of aggression and certainty. Human Captain, Krex Valdun began without preamble, this is your final opportunity to comply with Corvani demands. Surrender your fleet and transfer your ancient technology, or face the consequences of threatening galactic security. War Admiral, Steve replied calmly, humanity has no intention of threatening anyone. Our railgun test was a peaceful scientific experiment. Peaceful? Krex Valdun's scales shifted to an even deeper red. Your weapon destroyed an asteroid the size of a city and created energy disturbances that activated ancient monitoring systems throughout the galaxy. No species has possessed such power since the ancients themselves vanished. That doesn't make us the ancients, Steve protested. Perhaps not. But it makes you their inheritors, and that is equally dangerous. The galaxy will not tolerate another ancient-level civilization. We learned that lesson millions of years ago. Steve frowned. What lesson? Krex Valdun's expression became even more grim. The ancients did not simply vanish human. They destroyed themselves in a civil war that nearly tore the galaxy apart. Entire star systems were eliminated. Billions of species were exterminated as collateral damage. We will not allow that to happen again. The transmission cut off, leaving Steve staring at a blank screen. He turned to his tactical officer. Maria, get me a direct line to Dr. Bennett on Olympus Station, and patch in Admiral Sullivan. Within minutes, both men appeared on split screens. Admiral Sullivan looked exhausted while Dr. Bennett appeared, to be working frantically on something in his laboratory. Captain Rodriguez, the Admiral began, I hope you have good news because I don't. The Ethereal Collective just withdrew their ambassador from Earth. The Unity Collective Mind has declared human space a zone of instability. Even our friends in the Vorthak Confederation are being pressured to cut all ties with us. What about military support? Steve asked. None. Everyone's too afraid of what might happen if they get involved in a conflict with potential ancient successors. Dr. Bennett looked up from his work. Gentlemen, I've been analyzing the data from our railgun test, and I think I know why the Corvani are so worried. The energy signature we created doesn't just match ancient technology, it's exactly identical, down to the quantum level. Meaning, what? Steve asked. Meaning our railgun isn't just similar to ancient weapons. Somehow we accidentally recreated their exact technology. The question is how? Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. Could we have unknowingly been following ancient blueprints? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But there's something else. The space-time distortions I mentioned earlier, they're not random. They follow a specific pattern that suggests deliberate design. Steve felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying the ancients somehow guided our research? I'm saying that level of coincidence is statistically impossible. Either we're incredibly lucky or something wanted us to build this weapon. Before anyone could respond, Maria called out from her station. Captain, the Corvani fleet is changing. Formation. They're arranging themselves for a coordinated attack. Steve looked at the tactical display. The red dots were spreading out into a classic encirclement pattern designed to prevent any human ships from escaping. Time to contact? 8 hours, sir. Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled through the communication system. Captain, I'm authorizing you to use the experimental railgun systems. Rules of engagement are weapons free if the Corvani fire first. Understood, sir. What about our secret advantage? 3 ships with railgun capability against 200 conventional warships. It's not much, but it's all we have. Dr. Bennett suddenly looked up with excitement. Wait, I just found something in the test data. The dimensional distortions created by our railgun shot. They opened what looks like a temporary gateway. Gateway to where? Steve asked. I'm not sure, but the energy readings suggest it might be a form of faster-than-light communication. What if the ancients used railgun technology not just for weapons, but for instant communication across galactic distances? Steve was about to respond when his communication officer called out again. Captain, incoming transmission, but it's not from the Corvani. Source. Unknown, sir. The signal is coming from everywhere. Every communication array in the fleet is receiving the same transmission simultaneously. Steve felt his heart skip a beat. Put it on screen. The main display flickered, then filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge freeze. It wasn't an alien face or a human message. It was a symbol, a complex geometric pattern that seemed to shift and move as they watched it. The symbol looked ancient beyond measure, but also strangely familiar. Then a voice spoke, clear and unmistakable despite having no identifiable source. Children of Earth, we have been waiting. The bridge fell completely silent. Steve realized he was holding his breath. You have rediscovered the path we left for you, the voice continued. The path to power and responsibility. The galaxy fears you because they remember what unchecked power can do. They are not wrong to fear. Who are you? Steve managed to ask. We are what you call the ancients. We are what you may become. We have watched your species grow, waiting for the moment when you would take the first step toward your true potential. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the communication system, shaking with disbelief. You're really the ancients? You still exist? We exist in ways your language cannot express. We chose to transcend physical limitations when our power threatened to destroy everything we had built. But we did not abandon the galaxy. We waited for a species worthy of our legacy. Dr. Bennett leaned forward on his screen. Why humanity? Why us? Because when your species discovered the power to reshape reality, your first thought was not conquest, but protection. Your railgun was designed to build, not destroy. Your weapons are created to defend, not attack. This is the wisdom we sought. In our successors, Steve looked at the tactical display, where the Corvani fleet continued its approach. Then, can you help us? The galaxy thinks we're a threat. The galaxy is correct to be cautious. The power you have rediscovered could indeed threaten all life, but we will not save you from the consequences of your choices. You must prove yourselves worthy as we once did. How? Admiral Sullivan asked. By showing wisdom in the face of overwhelming force. By choosing protection over conquest when victory seems certain. By remembering that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to preserve. The symbol on the screen began to fade. The Corvani approach with the intention of preventing another ancient war. Show them that such a war is not necessary. Show them that humanity has learned what we failed to understand until it was almost too late. Wait, Steve called out. Don't leave us. We are not leaving you. We never left. We are in every choice you make, every moment when you decide between power and wisdom. Prove that humanity deserves the legacy we offer, and you will find us again. The symbol disappeared, leaving the bridge in silence. Maria looked up from her tactical station with wide eyes. Captain, the Corvani fleet has stopped advancing. They're holding position at the edge of the solar system. Steve stared at the tactical display, where the red dots had indeed stopped moving. Any communication from them? Yes, sir. War Admiral Crex Valdoon is requesting immediate talks with human leadership. He says the situation has changed. Steve suspected he knew what had changed. The ancients hadn't just spoken to humanity, they had spoken to everyone in the galaxy simultaneously. And now everyone knew that humanity wasn't just inheriting ancient technology. They were inheriting the responsibility that came with it. Captain Steve Rodriguez watched the tactical display with growing tension. Despite the ancient transmission, the Corvani fleet had not withdrawn. War Admiral Crex Valdoon's request for talks had turned out to be nothing more than a demand for immediate human surrender, with the added threat that refusal would now be seen as defying the will of the ancients themselves. "Captain," Lieutenant Maria Santos called from her station. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Sullivan." The Admiral's face appeared on screen, looking more grim than Steve had ever seen him. "Captain, negotiations have failed. President Cross offered to place all Railgun technology under joint galactic oversight, but the Corvani rejected the proposal. They want complete human submission or nothing." "What are our orders, sir?" "The President has authorized military action to defend human space. We will not surrender our freedom to fear and intimidation. You are weapons-free, Captain." Steve nodded, though his stomach churned at the odds they faced. "Understood, Admiral. Any word from our potential allies?" "The Vorthak Confederation is providing quiet support through intelligence sharing, but they can't openly oppose the Corvani without triggering a galaxy-wide war. We're on our own." As the Admiral's transmission ended, Steve turned to address his bridge crew. "All hands, this is the captain. In a few hours, we're going to face the largest military force ever assembled against humanity. Our orders are simple. Protect Earth and all human colonies. We may be outnumbered, but we have something they don't expect." He looked at the modified weapons console where technicians had installed humanity's first ship-mounted railgun. It was smaller than Dr. Bennett's prototype, but still capable of accelerating projectiles to devastating speeds. "Maria, signal the fleet to form Defensive Formation Alpha. Keep the railgun-equipped ships in reserve until I give the word." "Aye, sir." 3 hours later, the Corvani fleet began its final approach. Steve watched as over 200 enemy vessels moved into attack formation, their hulls gleaming with the reflected light of the distant sun. Each ship was 3 times the size of humanity's largest vessel, armed with energy weapons that could slice through human armor like paper. "Enemy fleet entering weapons range," Maria reported. "They're targeting our lead ships. All vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez. Engage evasive maneuvers and return fire. Remember, we're buying time for the reserve units to get into position." The space around Earth lit up with weapon discharges as the battle began. Corvani energy beams lanced out toward the human fleet, while humanity's conventional weapons replied with streams of high-velocity projectiles and explosive missiles. The first human ship to fall was the UEV Guardian, overwhelmed by concentrated fire from 6 Corvani vessels. Steve watched its life signs disappear from his tactical display and felt a cold anger building in his chest. "Captain," Maria called out, 3 Corvani heavy cruisers are targeting us directly. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire with all conventional. Weapons! The Defender shook as enemy beams struck its armor, but the ship held together. Steve knew they couldn't take much more punishment. "UEV Titan reporting heavy damage," came a voice over the communication system. "We're losing power to main engines. UEV Phoenix is down," reported another captain. "Life pods are away," But the ship is gone. Steve realized they were losing the battle exactly as everyone had predicted. 12 ships against 200 was never going to be a fair fight. But he still had his secret weapons. Maria, signal the UEV hammer, anvil, and thunder. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what human engineering can do. Aye, sir. The 3 railgun-equipped ships had been hanging back, looking like they were retreating from the battle. Now they suddenly changed course, accelerating toward the enemy fleet at maximum speed. All units with experimental weapons, Steve broadcast. You are authorized to fire at will. Target the largest enemy vessels first. What happened next would be remembered in military history books for generations. The UEV hammer fired first, its railgun accelerating a tungsten projectile to 15% of light speed. The Corvani, heavy cruiser it targeted, didn't have time to react. The projectile punched through the enemy ship's armor, hull, and internal structure as if they weren't there, emerging from the other side in a spray of molten metal and atmosphere. The Corvani ship exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local stars. Direct hit, Maria shouted. Enemy vessel completely destroyed. But the real shock came from the enemy fleet's reaction. Instead of pressing their attack, many Corvani ships began pulling back, their formation wavering as commanders realized what they were facing. The UEV Anvil fired next, its railgun shot destroying another heavy cruiser with the same devastating effectiveness. The UEV Thunder followed seconds later, eliminating a third target. This is War Admiral Krex Valdoon to all human vessels, came a transmission. Cease fire immediately. We demand to know how you obtained ancient-level weapons. Steve smiled grimly. This is Captain Rodriguez. These aren't ancient weapons, War Admiral. They're human weapons, built by human engineers using human science, and we have a lot more of them. It was a bluff, but the Corvani didn't know that. The 3 railgun ships were the only ones humanity had, and they were already running low on ammunition. Impossible, Krex Valdoon replied. No species has developed such weapons independently since the ancients themselves. Then you underestimated humanity, Steve replied. Now I suggest you withdraw your fleet before we demonstrate just how much you underestimated us. But before the Corvani could respond, something extraordinary happened. New contacts appeared. On the tactical display, emerging from what looked like empty space near the outer edge of the solar system. Captain, Maria said with wonder in her voice, I'm detecting massive energy signatures, multiple vessels of unknown configuration approaching both fleets. The new ships were unlike anything in any database. Sleek and beautiful, they seemed to be made of some kind of crystalline material that reflected light in impossible ways. They moved without any visible propulsion system, gliding through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. This is Oracle to all vessels in the Sol system, came a new voice, neither human nor any known alien species. All hostilities will cease immediately. Steve stared at the display. Oracle, as in the ancient AI that's supposed to be neutral in all galactic conflicts? The same, came the reply. We have remained neutral for precisely 700,000 years. That neutrality ends today. War Admiral Krex Valdoon's voice crackled over the communication channel. Oracle, this is a Corvani military operation. You have no authority to interfere. On the contrary, Oracle replied calmly, we have been waiting for this moment since the ancients departed. The species known as humanity has proven themselves worthy of ancient legacy through their actions in this conflict. Worthy how? Krex Valdoon demanded. They created weapons capable of reshaping the galaxy, and their first use was in defense of their home. They faced overwhelming odds and chose to fight rather than surrender their freedom. Most importantly, when they achieved technological superiority, they offered to share control rather than claim dominance. Steve felt his heart racing. Oracle, are you saying... We are saying that humanity has passed the test the ancients left for their successors, the test of wisdom in the face of power, the test of protection over conquest. The Oracle ships moved into formation between the human and Corvani fleets, their mere presence causing both sides to stop firing. War Admiral Krex Valdun, Oracle continued, your fears of another ancient war are understandable but misplaced. Humanity has proven they possess the wisdom the ancients lacked in their early years. They will not repeat the mistakes that nearly destroyed the galaxy? And if you are wrong, Krex Valdun asked, then we will be the first to stop them, Oracle replied simply. But we do not believe that will be necessary. The ancients chose to transcend physical existence rather than risk another destructive war. Humanity has chosen to use their power to protect rather than conquer. This is the evolution the ancients hope to see. Steve looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had gone into battle expecting to die defending their home. Now they found themselves being declared the inheritors of the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Oracle, Steve said carefully. What happens now? Now, Captain Rodriguez, humanity must decide what kind of galactic power they wish to become. The tools of the ancients are yours to inherit, but the responsibility that comes with them cannot be avoided. War Admiral Krex Valdun's fleet began withdrawing to a safe distance, but Steve could tell this wasn't over. The galaxy had just learned that humanity possessed weapons that could threaten any civilization, backed by the ancient AI that had remained neutral for nearly 1,000,000 years. Maria, Steve said quietly, get me President Cross. I think we're about to have some very interesting diplomatic conversations. As the immediate battle ended, Steve realized that the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had proven they could fight for their freedom. Now they had to prove they could handle the responsibility of being the galaxy's new guardians. The question was whether they were truly ready for that burden. Dr. Alex Bennett stood in his laboratory aboard Olympus Station, staring at holographic displays that showed technology beyond his wildest dreams. 3 days had passed since Oracle's intervention in the battle with the Corvani fleet, and the ancient AI had kept its promise to share the secrets of ancient civilization with humanity. This is incredible, Dr. Kate Phillips said, examining a 3-dimensional blueprint that seemed to float in the air. Look at this energy conversion system. It turns matter directly into usable power at nearly 100% efficiency, Bennett nodded, though he felt overwhelmed by the implications. Oracle, how is it possible that we independently developed railgun technology identical to the ancients? The odds against that must be astronomical. The AI's voice filled the laboratory, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The odds were indeed astronomical, Dr. Bennett. That is because your development was not entirely independent. What do you mean? Kate asked. The ancients did not simply vanish when they transcended physical existence. They remained connected to this galaxy, watching and occasionally guiding species that showed potential. Humanity has been subtly influenced for thousands of years. Bennett felt a chill run down his spine. Influenced how? Small nudges in your scientific development. A mathematical insight here, an engineering breakthrough there. Nothing that forced your progress, but gentle guidance that helped you avoid the dead ends that trapped other species. Kate pulled up another blueprint, this one showing a device that could apparently open doorways through space-time itself. So we're not really as smart as we thought we were? On the contrary, Oracle replied, the guidance only worked because your species possesses the fundamental trait the ancients were looking for, the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields through intuitive understanding rather than pure calculation. I don't understand, Bennett said. Most species approach electromagnetic engineering through mathematics alone. They calculate field strengths, predict interactions, and build according to formulas. Humans do something different. You visualize the fields, feel their interactions, and build based on intuition that your mathematics then supports. Bennett thought about his own work on the Railgun project. It was true that many of his breakthrough moments had come not from calculations, but from sudden insights about how electromagnetic fields should behave. This intuitive approach, Oracle continued, is what allowed the ancients to develop technology that seemed impossible to other species. It is also what made them dangerous. When you can reshape electromagnetic fields by intuition alone, the line between creation and destruction becomes very thin. Kate looked up from the holographic displays. Is that what caused the ancient civil war? Their technology became too powerful? Precisely. Two factions emerged among the ancients. One believed that their power should be used to guide and protect younger species. The other believed that only the strongest deserved to survive, and that the galaxy should be reshaped according to their vision. Bennett felt his stomach clench. And the war between them nearly destroyed everything? Entire star systems were eliminated. Billions of species became extinct as collateral damage. The ancients who survived realized that their power was too great for any single civilization to wield responsibly. So they chose to leave, Kate said quietly. They chose to transcend physical existence, but they also chose to leave behind a test, a way for worthy species to inherit their technology gradually, with safeguards in place to prevent another catastrophic war. Bennett walked over to a display showing what looked like a small metallic device. And this is part of that test? That is a consciousness interface, Oracle explained. It allows direct communication with the transcended ancients. They have been waiting to speak with humanity's leaders. Before Bennett could respond, his communication panel chimed with an incoming priority message from Earth. President Helen Cross appeared on screen, looking both excited and terrified. Dr. Bennett, I need you and your team to return to Earth. Immediately. We're about to host the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. What's happening, Madam President? Representatives from every major galactic civilization are coming to Earth for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. They want to discuss humanity's new status and what it means for the future of the galaxy. Kate looked worried. Are they still afraid of us? Some are, the President admitted. But Oracle's support has changed the political situation dramatically. The ancient AI hasn't taken sides in galactic politics for 700,000 years. Its endorsement of humanity carries enormous weight. Bennett studied the consciousness interface device. Madam President, we may have something that could help with the negotiations. Oracle has given us a way to speak directly with the ancients themselves. President Cross leaned forward. The real ancients? They're still alive? In a manner of speaking, Oracle interjected, its voice reaching through the communication channel. They exist in a state between life and death, between physical and energy. They chose this existence to avoid the temptations of absolute power. Can they help us convince the galaxy that we're not a threat? They can do more than that, Oracle replied. They can explain the true purpose of the test humanity has passed and what responsibilities come with ancient legacy. 6 hours later, Bennett found himself in the largest conference room in the United Nations building, surrounded by diplomatic representatives from dozens of alien species. The room buzzed with nervous energy as creatures of every conceivable shape and size waited to learn humanity's intentions. War Admiral Krex Valdoon sat with the Corvani delegation, his scales showing the deep blue of uncertainty. Ambassador Zektol represented the Vorthak Confederation, while flowing ethereal beings spoke for the ethereal collective. Even the Unity Collective Mind had sent a representative, though its presence was felt more than seen. President Cross stood at the podium, holding the consciousness interface device. Representatives of the galaxy, we are gathered here because humanity has inherited a great responsibility. Before we discuss what that means for all of us, I believe you should hear from the original source of this legacy. She activated the device, and the room filled with the same shifting geometric symbol that had appeared during the battle. But this time, when the ancient voice spoke, it addressed the entire assembly. Children of the galaxy, the voice began. We greet you across the vast span of time and space. We know your fears, for we once shared them. We know your anger, for we once felt it. Most importantly, we know your hope, for it is what sustained us through our darkest hours. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence. Many had grown up hearing stories of the ancients, but none had ever expected to hear their actual voices. Humanity has passed the test we left for our successors, the ancient voice continued. Not the test of technological achievement, but the test of wisdom. When given the power to destroy their enemies, they chose instead to seek understanding. When offered dominance over others, they chose protection. Krex Valdoon leaned forward. Ancient ones, how can we trust that humans will not repeat your mistakes? How do we know they will not abuse this power? Because they have already proven themselves in ways we never did at their stage of development. When we first obtained the power to reshape reality, our immediate thought was expansion and control. When humanity obtained this power, their first thought was responsibility and cooperation. Zektol spoke up. But the power you speak of, it could still destroy the galaxy if misused. Indeed it could, the ancient replied. That is why humanity will not inherit this power all at once. It will come gradually, with each new capability earned through demonstrated wisdom. They will be tested not just on their intentions, but on their actions. Bennett felt compelled to speak. What kind of tests? Tests of protection over conquest, tests of cooperation over domination, tests of preservation over destruction. Each time humanity chooses wisely, more ancient knowledge will become available to them. The ethereal collective representative, a being of pure energy that communicated through harmonious tones, asked a question that resonated through the room. And if they fail these tests, then the knowledge will be withdrawn, and humanity will face the same choice we did, transcend physical existence to avoid temptation, or watch their power destroy everything they hold dear. President Cross stepped forward. Ancient ones, what do you ask of us? We ask you to become what we could not, guardians rather than rulers, protectors rather than conquerors, teachers rather than dictators. The galaxy needs someone with the power to prevent another age of destruction, but also the wisdom to know when not to use that power. Crex Valdoon's scales shifted to a lighter blue, indicating cautious acceptance. And if humanity accepts this responsibility, then they will gradually inherit the tools necessary to maintain galactic peace, weapons to stop aggressors, technology to prevent natural disasters, knowledge to guide younger species toward their own enlightenment. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity wasn't just being offered ancient technology, they were being asked to become the galaxy's peacekeepers, wielding power that could reshape entire star systems. 6 months after the emergency session of the Galactic Council, Admiral Steve Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UEV Guardian's Light, watching a fleet of human vessels conduct training exercises in the space between Earth and Mars. The ships moved with precision that would have been impossible before humanity inherited ancient guidance systems, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive blue energy signatures of Railgun technology. "Admiral," Captain Lisa Warren reported from the UEV Protector, "the patrol fleet is ready for deployment to the Arcturus system. The mining colony there has requested protection from the pirate raids." Steve nodded, reviewing the tactical data on his display. The Arcturus colony was one of dozens that had requested admission to the Terran Protectorate, the new organization that humanity had established to fulfill their role as galactic guardians. What had started as a desperate defense of Earth had grown into something much larger. "Any intelligence on the pirate force?" Steve asked. "According to Vorthak sources, we're looking at approximately 30 ships using stolen military hardware," Captain Warren replied. "They've been hitting mining operations throughout the Outer Rim, taking advantage of the political upheaval following the ancient revelations." Steve understood the pirates' reasoning. The establishment of the Terran Protectorate had disrupted old power structures throughout the galaxy. Some species had enthusiastically joined the new organization, while others had retreated into isolation. The chaos had created opportunities for criminal elements that thought they could operate without interference. They were about to learn otherwise. "Signal the fleet to jump to hyperspace," Steve ordered. "Time to show these pirates that the galaxy has new rules." The journey to Arcturus took only 3 hours thanks to the ancient-derived navigation systems that Oracle had provided. As the human fleet emerged from hyperspace near the mining colony, Steve could see the pirate ships scattered around the asteroid field, their crews apparently confident that no one would challenge them so far from civilized space. "Admiral," came a transmission from the colony's administrator. "Thank goodness you're here. They've been demanding tribute for protection, but we know they're just going to take our equipment and leave us defenseless. Not while the Protectorate has anything to say about it," Steve replied. "All citizens, please remain in your shelters while we deal with this situation." The pirate fleet had noticed the arrival of human ships and was already moving into attack formation. Steve counted 28 vessels of various sizes, most of them modified cargo haulers with military weapons bolted onto their hulls. Against any normal patrol force, they would have been formidable. Against railgun-equipped human ships, they were about to become an object lesson. "This is Pirate Captain Vex Crane to unknown vessels," came a transmission. The speaker was a Corvani, his scales showing the aggressive red that Steve had learned to associate with trouble. "This system is under our protection. Pay the tribute or face the consequences." "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Terran Protectorate," Steve replied calmly. "This system is under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Vex Crane's laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Humans, I heard you got lucky against War Admiral Crex Valdoon, but you're far from home now. Surrender your ships, and we might let your crews live." Steve sighed. Pirates never seemed to learn. "Captain Warren, You are authorized to demonstrate why piracy is no longer a profitable career choice. The UEV protector's railgun fired once, sending a tungsten projectile through the largest pirate vessel at 15% of light speed. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the kinetic impact. The effect on the remaining pirates was immediate. Half of them began transmitting surrender requests, while the others tried to flee at maximum speed. "All pirate vessels," Steve broadcast, "you have 30 seconds to cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Anyone who continues to flee will be considered a continuing threat to civilian populations." 23 ships surrendered immediately. The 5 that tried to run were intercepted by human vessels and disabled with precision shots that destroyed their engines without killing their crews. As Steve watched the human Marines boarding the pirate ships, he reflected on how much had changed since that first railgun test. Humanity had gone from being junior members of the galactic community to being its primary peacekeeping force. The responsibility was enormous, but so far they seemed to be living up to the trust placed in them. "Admiral," his communication officer called out, "Incoming transmission from Earth. It's Dr. Carter." Dr. Lisa Carter's face appeared on the main screen, and Steve could see the excitement in her expression. "Admiral, I have news from the diplomatic front. The hegemony of Tal has just requested admission to the Protectorate." Steve raised his eyebrows. The hegemony was one of the largest military powers in the galaxy, with over 200 star systems under their control. That's unexpected. I thought they were opposed to human leadership. They were until last week when their entire fleet was challenged by a rogue AI collective in the Perseus Arm. They managed to defeat the AI ships, but they lost 60% of their fleet doing it. They've realized that some threats are too big for any single species to handle alone. Steve nodded. The galaxy was full of dangers that no individual civilization could face. Rogue AIs, ancient automated defense systems, and cosmic phenomena that could sterilize entire sectors. The ancient technology that humanity was gradually inheriting was designed to deal with